Okay, folks, I'm back for your nightly update. I don't know if you want a nightly update. I don't know if that's something you desire, but I'm assuming if you're subscribed to this YouTube channel and you have a void in your life, that maybe I can provide you with something that is worthwhile, something for your mind. Great song called "Something for Your Mind" by the band Superorganism. Go look up that song and then play it and use that as the background track to your life in terms of what motivates you to tune into these streams. Really, what I'm doing is killing a bit of time before I get into the substance of what I'm going to discuss. So I usually do that by making bizarre, nonsensical stream of reference or stream of consciousness comments. Oh, somebody says that he loved my Batman impression yesterday. I'm glad. Maybe I'll kill another 30 seconds or so by continuing to do the Batman impression. The Batman impression is something like this. I think pretty much everybody can do it. Somebody notes that it sounds like I'm feeling better, not congested. Yeah, thankfully I'm not congested at the moment, but I don't rule out the possibility that I could wake up tomorrow super congested. This is how would Batman sound if he was congested. I cannot save anyone in Gotham. I'm too congested. My nose is running. I have to replace my secret weapons that I keep in my holster with Kleenex tissues. Now do Bane, someone says. What does Bane even sound like? I don't remember. I'm not like a big Batman fan. I just find it's incredibly easy to do the Batman impression. Are some other impressions that are pretty easy too, but I'm not gonna get into them. Although it might make for a nice viral video at some point. Batman was tied up today watching impeachment proceedings. He was following the soliloquies of Adam Schiff, so he couldn't save Gotham. Gotham is now in flames because Batman was sitting and watching CNN all day because he had to find out who Rudy Giuliani was texting on July 27th, 2019, because that's pretty much all they're talking about with regard to impeachment. Really, I mean, so much of this impeachment stuff, if you actually watch it, is about putting forth a timeline of what Rudy Giuliani's up to. And I know journalists, I know people who are supposed to be following this stuff for a living who can barely themselves keep track of the web of bizarre interlocking facts, much of which has to do with Rudy Giuliani, that comprise this whole impeachment episode. Now, the parts of the impeachment proceedings that I did watch today and listen to, I'm such a contemptible nerd. Maybe I shouldn't use the word nerd because nerds, in a way, have become culturally ascendant. Maybe use the phrase dork or loser to describe myself. I'm such a dork and or loser that I actually have the C-SPAN app on my phone. So what I do when I'm out and about, say if I'm driving here in the frozen tundra of New Hampshire, I listen to the impeachment proceedings on my nifty C-SPAN iPhone app. I think I might be the only person in the United States who has the C-SPAN iPhone app, but it's actually quite useful. if you're into that kind of thing. Like I remember one way that I used the iPhone app for C-SPAN in the past was at the 2016 Democratic Convention when I spent one of the nights outside the convention hall where there was a huge amount of protest, people going crazy because Hillary was being nominated. They thought it was stolen from Bernie, or they just didn't like Hillary for a variety of reasons. So they were marching and demonstrating and whatnot. So in order to sort of set the scene for myself, what I did was I wore headphones and I had the C-SPAN app going, so I could actually listen to the convention speeches while I was moving amongst the protesters and sort of reporting on the dueling goings on. So that was sort of interesting. Um, Somebody asked, why do I always do these streams at midnight? Yeah, that's just kind of how it works out for me. It's just when I'm available to do it. So I don't always do it at midnight or late at night, but generally I go to Tulsi's events every night, which on the weekdays start at around 6 or 6:30. Then I'm there for 2.5 hours or so, and then I go and have dinner, and then I drive back to wherever I'm staying. By the time I get back, it's around 9:30, 10 o'clock, and I sit around and catch up on what I missed for the past couple hours, and then I roll out of bed and make coffee, or go get coffee, go get this really subpar hotel coffee. Can you see it? Oops. And and then I launch the stream. So just the way it goes with for me according to my normal schedule, or not my normal schedule, but the schedule that I've been abiding by for the past almost a month now. Um, so here's something that I'm continuously aghast gets zero attention in most of the discussion of these impeachment proceedings, or specifically of the impeachment trial going on right now. Today, if there was a theme for maybe the first half of the trial today, it was Adam Schiff and other impeachment managers like Representative Sylvia Garcia, and I'm sure others that I probably missed. The theme was that they wanted to drive home the point that Trump was not acting in accordance with official U.S. foreign policy. And if you follow my streams or writing or tweets, you'll know that I've mentioned this many times in the past. But now we're getting it. It's being taken to a new level because it's being sort of entered into the historical record by way of this impeachment trial, the transcript for which, right, is going to be available for all of history. And maybe, again, I'm repeating myself, but is now going to be entrenched as precedent that's going to be embedded in the fabric of American governance for the rest of time. Now, does that sound a bit melodramatic? Perhaps. But this is only the third impeachment trial ever in U.S. history. So the logic being set forth, the premises that are being marshaled by, in effect, the prosecutors of the impeachment case, Schiff and his band of co-conspirators. What they're saying now has major ramifications, not just for this trial, not just for Trump, but for the trajectory of U.S. history, especially in the manner of how U.S. foreign policy can be conducted. So, what Schiff said over and over again today is that Trump was not adhering to so called official U.S. foreign policy. Let me bring up the quote really quickly. One useful thing about Twitter is that it kind of serves almost as a notepad for me. So I make observations over the course of the day, and then I can kind of synthesize them into a more extended thought later on. So Schiff at one point was harping on the fact that Trump departed from the talking points that he was provided by his sort of national security state underlings, most notably Lieutenant Colonel Vindman, who has become this quasi hero figure by the lights of many of the Democrats. And Schiff contended that Trump departed from these talking points because he was hell-bent on acting in a way that was, quote, contrary to official U.S. policy. And Schiff states, this official U.S. foreign policy that Trump was seeking to thwart was, quote, to deter Russian adventurism. So think about the implications of that for a moment. Schiff is essentially saying that even the president, who has a democratic mandate to conduct foreign policy as he sees fit, has committed a high crime or misdemeanor if he bucks the official foreign policy as stated or as held by these national security state bureaucrats. So essentially, what Schiff is arguing is that it's the unchangeable, unalterable, and eternal official policy of the country to deter Russian adventurism, which is code word for essentially engage in a perpetual Cold War with Russia, whether it's through fueling proxy wars like with Ukraine or sanctions or all manner of other tactics that were employed over the course of the actual previous Cold War and now take on a different form, but are still extant. So, what you're sort of doing in a way is rescinding from Trump and rescinding, and from the presidency writ large, the ability to conduct foreign policy in a fashion consistent with what the president wants to implement. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't object to his conduct of U.S. foreign policy. Of course, you can, and you can even vote him. You could even use the levers of power available to you in the congressional, in the legislative branch, to rein in some of those authorities that he's employing, to restrain his powers in certain respects, or you also have the option of simply voting him out at the next election. But what Schiff here is saying is that there's something different at play. It's that Trump's alleged defiance of U.S. foreign policy is reflective of why his behavior is considered impeachable and worthy of conviction and removal from office. And I just think that, of course, I wouldn't expect Adam Schiff to demonstrate any foresight on this at all. Who cares about him individually? But I would hope at least a portion of the commentariat, the people who are paid to think about this stuff all day, every day, would have at least that glimmer of awareness of how this actually establishes a precedent that is bad, because you're You're delegating to the national security state effectively autonomy, and they're not elected to anything. So you're saying that basically the voters do not have control fundamentally over the conduct of U.S. foreign policy because they're the ones who elect the president. So if he decides to go through unofficial channels, that was another talking point that they raised, that Trump's use of this unofficial channel to in the foreign policy domain was also so horrible. Okay, maybe you don't like the channel that he used, but that's not a high crime. Picture a future president using an unofficial channel to achieve certain foreign policy goals, but in a way that is virtuous, in a way that actually produces some common good. By the logic that's now enshrined here, they could potentially be accused of committing an impeachable offense. And so this just goes to why I have always been so adamant that I'm not going to just buy into whatever the prevailing narrative is on any of this stuff. I'm going to at least do what I can to use my critical thinking skills. And I'm not the smartest person on earth, but I'm immersed enough in a lot of this stuff that I can highlight some of the fallacies underlying um, the popular talking points, at least, and try to suss out what the implications are that go beyond Trump. Schiff at one point. Let me play you what I'm going to play the audio of another highlight of the day for Schiff. Hold on, because
of this past year, so just a couple months ago. Thank God, Putin said, thank God nobody is accusing us anymore of interfering in U.S. elections. Now they're accusing Ukraine. Thank God, Putin says. Well, you got to give Donald Trump credit for this. He has made a religious man out of Vladimir Putin. But I don't.
All right, so that was Schiff's big laugh line of the day. And, of course, you have to come to expect that there's going to be endless gratuitous references to Russia and Putin, because as I've said over and over again, and I will maintain to my dying breath, this impeachment stuff is just an extension of Russiagate. It's just its latest incarnation, or its culmination, arguably. But again, take a step back and think about what Schiff is saying there. Schiff is mocking Trump for Putin expressing a favorable attitude toward him, or toward the United States, not even toward Trump, really, just toward the U.S. It's like, so what would you prefer, Adam Schiff? You would prefer nuclear armed Russia threatening the United States? You would prefer to be in a situation where the president of Russia was outwardly, vocally antagonistic toward the U.S., and then we have to build up our respective nuclear arsenals, which we're doing anyway? What's the alternative here that you think would be preferable? They don't have one. And to me, it's an interesting contrast with Tulsi, because at her event today, she began her event by referencing something which got referenced very little today, or at least not enough, which was the Doomsday Clock, which is the sort of device used by the bulletin of the atomic scientists to signify how close, in their estimation, we are to essentially civilizational extinction. And in order to make that judgment, they combine the threats of nuclear war, climate change, other issues. But one of the reasons that they cited for moving the clock, Doomsday Clock, today closer than ever to midnight. So we're now 100 seconds from midnight. And midnight is poof, goodbye humanity. one of the factors that they cited for that was the deterioration in U.S. Russia relations. And now, yes, to an extent, you do have to blame Trump for that. Nobody forced him to, for example, tear up the INF Treaty, which was originally brokered by Reagan with Gorbachev and led to at least the diminution of the nuclear arsenals of the U.S. and Russia. Nobody forced Trump to bomb Putin's client state in the Middle East, Syria, or attempt to overthrow the government of their chief ally in South America, Venezuela, or sanction Russia or attempt to intervene to block their ability to sell natural gas into Europe, all that. Nobody forced Trump to do that stuff, right? So he does bear blame. However, the Russiagate and impeachment fanatics who have infused their entire opposition to Trump with militaristic premises and hawkish paranoia and hyperbole, they're the ones who, in addition, have fostered a political climate that made it toxic to support better relations with Russia, which is what Trump originally advocated in the 2016 campaign, and it made him different from the rest of the Republicans running for the nomination. And yeah, I see now these pro-Trump media figures saying, "Oh, the Democrats are so lame and they don't get it because Trump really is super tough on Russia. He's even tougher than Obama." Just like, okay, that's true, but that's totally inconsistent with what Trump claimed that he wanted to accomplish in the presidency. Trump wanted better relations with Russia, but the relations with Russia are at a low point, notwithstanding the occasional diplomatic niceties that are exchanged between Trump and Putin. If only Trump was actually a puppet of Putin, we'd probably be better off. Maybe we'd still have nuclear proliferation under control. Maybe we wouldn't be spending so much money on building up the U.S. nuclear arsenal. Maybe we'd have some of these longstanding treaties still in place. Maybe we could actually pursue further treaties and further engagement. And yeah, so I actually kind of wish in a way that Trump was compromised by Putin, because he wouldn't have implemented so many destructive hawkish policies vis-a-vis Russia. So we'd be better off. But what these hysterics have done, Schiff being one of the worst offenders, if not the worst, is they've made it almost politically impossible now to pursue true détente with Russia, which is sorely needed. So while all of DC was fixated tonight on Schiff's rants, Schiff's pro hawk anti-Russia ranting, what did Tulsi do? She started off her event by invoking the Doomsday Clock and saying, "Look, everybody, we got to rein in. We got to end this new Cold War with Russia." So yeah, that's a courageous stance on her part. Nobody else is saying that, including the Republicans, who are beating their chests and praising and celebrating how tough they think that Trump is on Russia. So while Republicans occasionally have some points in terms of calling out some of the bogus logic that Democrats use to justify Russiagate impeachment, you can't fully trust what they're saying because they're operating from a very similar hawkish premise. Adam Schiff and, let's say, Marsha Blackburn, who's a senator from Tennessee who got in trouble for condemning Vindman, they're two sides of the same hawkish coin. Marsha Blackburn said today, Adam Schiff is hailing Alexander Vindman as an American patriot. How patriotic is it to badmouth and ridicule our great nation in front of Russia, America's greatest enemy? So that's the most counterproductive criticism of Democrats imaginable. It's just adding hawkishness upon hawkishness. So Adam Schiff and Marsha Blackburn are two peas in a pod. And it's why most Republicans are totally unreliable with regard to putting forth a rational counterweight to what the Democrats are trying to do with their impeachment boondoggle. It's funny to me that Adam Schiff is now this superstar. I mean, he was already well known, right? Because he was one of the chief foils of Trump, and everybody knows Adam Schiff as just sort of the chief promulgator of Russiagate and impeachment. But now he's on our TVs like 8 hours a day, and he's the star of this made-for-TV special episode of impeachment. This summer, Adam Schiff in the impeachment of Donald J. Trump. Rated R. So, fittingly, Adam Schiff represents Hollywood. Now, I'm not making any kind of conspiratorial statement there. I'm just noting the irony or the fittingness of Adam Schiff representing literally the congressional district in which Hollywood exists. And now he's the headliner in this Hollywood show. Yeah, so I'll let me play to you this ad, this sort of digital ad thing that Tulsi put out right before she went onto stage at her event this evening.
I'll tell you what's concerning to me right now is we are at a greater risk of nuclear catastrophe than ever before in history, with increasing tensions between the United States and nuclear-armed countries like Russia.
There's a new escalation this evening, the war of words. A new threat from Russia high on the agenda.
Today, Vladimir Putin is threatening to point new hypersonic missiles at the U.S.
Putin's threat was in response to President Trump starting the 6-month clock to pull out of the Intermediate Range Nuclear Forces Treaty.
Over 3 decades ago, Presidents Reagan and Gorbachev negotiated this historic INF treaty that helped to end the Cold War, moving us closer to peace.
Our entire complement of Pershing-2 and ground-launched cruise missiles will all be destroyed. On the Soviet side, over 1,500 deployed warheads will be removed. The importance of this treaty transcends numbers.
Our future depends on it. The well-being of our people and our planet depend on it. President Trump's reckless decision to pull out of the INF treaty heightens this threat by exacerbating the new Cold War, sparking a new arms race between the United States and Russia, and bringing us ever closer to a nuclear holocaust.
So it's no coincidence that she chose tonight to put that out, while DC and the media are preoccupied on issues which exacerbate the new Cold War. There's an intentionality there. And it highlights, again, and if I sound too sycophantic, so be it. But this is my genuine belief. It once again highlights the singularity of her discernment. Because there's nobody else, Republican or Democrat, who would do something like that, who has any stature in the American political scene. Thank goodness at least one person can speak about the long-term implications of the insanity of what's being done here, whereas everybody else is blinded to it for whatever partisan reason. So, I don't want a Cold War. I don't want a new Cold War. I mean, we're in one. And I also don't want to. The Cold War was pretty bad. Go read a book about it sometime. We were on the brink of nuclear annihilation on several occasions. Okay. Gonna cut it a little bit short tonight. If anybody has any super chats, feel free to share them. I'll scroll through the comments and see if there's anything notable. Somebody says review the new Taco Bell Reaper Ranch taco. Okay, I'll review it as Batman. Dan says in the super chat, Tulsi could make history by being the first person to host MTV Singled Out all by herself. Is that a dating show? Yes. From the 90s, so a little bit of retro reference. I don't recall that one. Was it a guy and a girl who hosted or something? Okay, I get your reference. Good one. Somebody says, Gabbard who needs to read a book on the Cold War because she is a fear-generating knucklehead. No, I would concede that the ad she put out there or the video is jarring and even a little frightening. But the fact that the Doomsday Clock was put at 100 seconds to midnight is also quite frightening. The fact that both Russia and the United States are currently ramping up their production of nuclear arms weaponry is quite frightening. Mikhail Gorbachev, who brokered that INF treaty with Reagan, which Trump blew up at the behest of John Bolton, who is now touted as the savior figure that's going to swoop in and help the Democrats make their case for why Trump needs to be convicted. Gorbachev is constantly going on TV and writing columns warning about how the U.S. and Russia are on a collision course to nuclear catastrophe. So that maybe people should be more frightened about it, and maybe they should orient their political outlook around mitigating some of the dangers posed by this situation, which means not fomenting baseless hysteria for political gain vis-a-vis Russia. It means not taking unnecessarily hawkish and antagonistic steps in the way you conduct foreign policy vis-a-vis Russia. Not doing those things. So he says, can Schiff please go fight the Russians over there, please? Yeah. Why doesn't he go? You know, I mean, all right. I'll talk to you all later. This is Batman signing out to go lay in bed for a little while and mindlessly watch idiotic CNN talking heads recount the best moments of Adam Schiff today. That's what Batman does rather than save Gotham. All right, bye-bye.